Peace and love, black families. The Prince of Pan-Africanism, Dr. Umar Johnson. We just finished our live feed of the weekly Tuesday morning Black Parent Teleconference. I wanted to come right back at you just for the day before I go into work, because yesterday I had the privilege of visiting the all-new Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. And I just want to give you my assessment of what I saw. Now, this is a museum that was signed into law by former President George W. Bush during his presidency 13 years ago. The idea was recommended to former President George W. Bush, by Representative John Lewis and other members of the United States Congress. Most of you remember Representative John Lewis. His character, his personalization was rendered to us in the movie Selma. He was part of the Freedom Riders movement as a young man. In his older years, he's obviously become a U.S. congressman and a national icon to many, out of Georgia. He's a U.S. rep out of Georgia. John Lewis, civil rights icon. He marched with Dr. King. He's one of the few remaining living leaders who actually has a direct connection to other greats. One of the few. So, Laura Bush, George W. Bush's wife, actually sits on the board of directors or trustees for this new Smithsonian National African American Museum. So this was a George Bush project. And when you understand George Bush, I think you will understand why some of you, like me, will take issue with the museum after you've had an opportunity to visit it. Now, many of you, as did many of the brothers and sisters who I saw at the museum yesterday, many of you will have no problem with the museum. You will think that it's a beautiful contribution to the black struggle. In fact, I would say probably 85% of African Americans who visit that museum will have no problem with what they see. But for 15% of us who have more than a superficial attachment, superficial love, and superficial commitment to African struggle, you're going to have a very serious problem with that museum. So let me just give you some of my observations and assessments. First of all, this museum cost $540 million. Let me say this again. This museum cost $540 million. That is almost half of $1 billion for this museum. Now, even if you like the museum, I want you to ask yourself a question when you go. Did what I just saw, take that back. Ask yourself, was what I just saw worth the $540 million price tag that was put on it? Ask yourself that. Before you even give an assessment of the museum, after you went through all 6 floors, all the different exhibits, the cafe, the gift shop, the Oprah Winfrey Theater, ask yourself, do you feel this museum was worth $540 million? And then put that within the context that the same government that raised $540 million for this so-called museum won't even give you $2 million for a school, won't even give you $10 million for a hospital, won't give you a couple million for a bank, will not allocate millions to bring more black teachers into the school. They will not allocate money to improve the living conditions of black people in poverty. The same government that just spent $500 million on this museum won't even spend 1% of that to improve the lives of black people. So that's contradiction number one. That's contradiction number one. So when you go into this museum, and I'm going to simplify this for the sake of conversation, there are approximately 6 floors in this museum, approximately. There's 3 floors in the bottom that focus on history. And then there's 3 floors at the top that focus on contemporary African American culture. The here and the now. So the best way to proceed through the museum is to start at the bottom, which is the history, and then work your way up to today. So floor number 1 is slavery. Floor number 6 is where we are today. Okay? Now the first thing, many of you know, what was my number 1 concern before going into this museum? I shared with you all that I was concerned that when I walk in this museum, it's going to start in slavery, given no context for the Great Ma'afa, given no historical interpretation of who we were before they stole us away. No explanation of the culture and civilization of African people before we got here. No talk of the various ethnic nations from which we come. We know that so many of us came from Ghana. We know that so many of us came from Nigeria. We know that so many of us came from what is now known as Liberia, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Congo. So you would expect a context to be created. Before we stole these people away from their ancestral homeland, they were doctors, they were lawyers, they were nation builders, they were civil engineers, they were deep into spirituality, they studied the universe. Provide a context for how slavery destroyed and imbalanced traditional African civilization. Provide a context for the intellectual theft. Provide a context for the theft of human life. You would expect that, right? But unfortunately, brothers and sisters, my concern, my fear that this museum was going to start in slavery, unfortunately, has proven to be true. The museum gives no historical narrative on who African people were before we were brought here in slavery. The museum starts in slavery. Yes, $540 million, and it starts in slavery. So that's number 1. Number 2, when you go through this first exhibit, the first floor, I'm going to say floor, they talk about our slavery, transatlantic slave trade, the different European countries that participated in it. Now, one of the biggest issues I had is there's some pictures on the wall that show how many slaves each European enslaving nation stole from Africa. So it has Denmark, Portugal, France, Europe, the Netherlands, and it'll say 5 million. This country stole 3 million from here, 500,000 from here. So when you add up all the slaves stolen from Africa, according to these Smithsonian pictures, you will draw the conclusion that only 13 million Africans were stolen from Africa, thanks to George Bush and Laura Bush. 13, when you add it up, you get 13, no more than 15 million. See, this is the subliminal programming. This is the subliminal disrespect. Only 15 million Africans were stolen from Africa and brought to America. We know that's a damn lie. We know that's a damn lie. And that doesn't even include the generations of enslaved Africans who were born in America through breeding farms from 1808 to 1865. See, you just don't count those who were brought. You have to count those who were born into the system of European chattel slavery. No conversation. 13 million. And then when you walk through the first floor, the slave floor, there's a statue of Thomas Jefferson. And if my memory serves me correctly, because I'm going to go again, because I was traumatized the first visit, so I need to go again. There's a statue of Thomas Jefferson. And if memory serves me correctly, the statue of Thomas Jefferson in the slavery exhibit. The statue of Thomas Jefferson in the slavery exhibit is taller. If memory serves me correctly, it's taller than any other exhibit on us in the slavery exhibit. How in the hell can a slave master, white supremacist, racist, child sex offender, child pedophile Thomas Jefferson, who used to sexually molest a little black girl by the name of Sally Hemings, to the point that he would even take Sally Hemings on tour with him to Europe on vacation. He would take this little black girl on the ships, because there were no planes, on the ships, so he can fondle her and sleep with her even while he was out of the country. That's how sick he was. For those of you who saw Birth of a Nation, for those of you who saw the Nat Turner picture, Birth of a Nation, if you remember, once the rebellion started, it was Will, the executioner, who kicked open the door of one of the slave masters. Y'all remember this scene? He kicked the door open, murdered the slave master, and out from under the blanket on the bed where the slave master slept, what happened? A little black girl, only about 10 or 11 years old, climbs out from under the blanket. Will picks her up and takes her out of the slave master's house. Do y'all remember that scene? The little black girl climbing from under the blanket. Do you know what that scene symbolized? That scene symbolized not only Thomas Jefferson, but millions of white men, slave masters and non-slave masters, who would spend the night with little black girls, not their white wives, not the adult African enslaved women, but our daughters were used as bed wenches for the slave master. See, this is why when you Negroes say not all white people own slaves, they didn't have to, but they all participated in the psychological terrorism of African people. He didn't have to own a slave, but he would sleep with your daughter at night. Is that not as bad? He didn't own no slaves, but he would rape your mother in the daytime. Is that not as bad? You can't count the amount of white men, slave masters and non-slave masters, who spent the night with our daughters, spent the night with our little sisters, underage black girls being used as child sex slaves for white men, slave master or not. So you got Thomas Jefferson, this gigantic statue of Thomas Jefferson in the slave exhibit, like he's white Jesus looking over everybody else who participated in the anti-slavery movement. Now, the excuse they're going to give you, brothers and sisters, the excuse that they're going to give you is that we're trying to show you that the writer of the Declaration of Independence, which he plagiarized, the author of the Declaration of Independence, former Secretary of State, founder of the University of Virginia, former President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, was a slave owner. We want to show that. Okay, but if you want to show that, why is he on the pedestal? If you want to show that he was a hypocrite, why is he on the pedestal? Why is he raised up so high? Why does he get a statue? Why does he get a statue? And if he gets a statue, why is the statue in the slave exhibit? Why is he given more respect? Listen, brothers and sisters, Thomas Jefferson is given more respect in the slavery exhibit than slaves or those who fought against it. How is that acceptable? He's given more respect than the slaves and the freedom fighters in the slavery exhibit. How is that respectable? Thanks to your former president, George Bush, and his wife. And his wife. And I'm willing to bet that President Barack Obama, who y'all love so much, for doing nothing for black folks, but putting us back in Jim Crow, who y'all love so much for doing nothing. I cannot believe that him nor his wife, Ms. Obama, First Lady, how could y'all sit by, look at this, and not offer some criticisms for how this thing needs to be made a little bit better before we open this up? Obama has done nothing for black folks. The least thing you could have done, brother, my brother Obama, brother, the least thing you could have done was made sure that that museum, which was built under your presidency, Bush may have authorized it, but it was built under your presidency. The least thing you could have done was made sure that it accurately reflected the struggle and the strength of African history and culture. That's the least thing you could have done, Barack Hussein Obama. That's the least you could have done. You couldn't even do that. So then where they have Thomas Jefferson, they have some bricks, right? And each brick has the name of different Africans that Thomas Jefferson owned. Okay? So they have a stack of bricks, and it has names of different Africans that Thomas Jefferson owned. Okay? Now, they do tell you that he owned 609 slaves during the course of his lifetime. I'm going to repeat that. He owned 609 slaves. Can I say that one more time? I'm going to say this one more time. I got to say this. He owned 609 slaves during his lifetime. And he gets rewarded at the National African American Museum for dehumanizing and raping 609 Africans, and they give him a bronze statue in the middle of a slavery exhibit. Now check this out. Let me give you some comparison. Brothers and sisters. And some of you ask, what does Ifa Tunde mean? You saw the movie Birth of a Nation. When Birth of a Nation comes on, little Nat Turner gets a spiritual reading. Do you remember the priest in Birth of a Nation, the beginning of the movie that gives Nat Turner his reading? Well, that's Chief Olaitan of the Oyotunji African Village. He happens to be one of the members of my spiritual team. I have others. Chief Ifalo Doom, Tulsa, Oklahoma. I have others. Baba Akin Lan in New Orleans. I have others. Mama Yeye Feeney, South Florida. I have others. But Chief Olaitan is the elder of my spiritual team. He's the chief of the Oyotunji African Village. And just like Nat Turner, he was the first to give Dr. Umar Johnson a spiritual reading. And when he gave me that reading, he called to the spirit to choose a name for me. And when he cast the divination for Dr. Umar Johnson, the name that was given to him for me was Ifa Tunde. This comes from God, Ifa Tunde. This comes from the ancestors, Ifa Tunde. I did not choose this. It came through divination. What does it mean? Destiny has returned. That's what it means. Ifa Tunde means destiny has returned. So that means ancestors sent me to finish their work. Boom. Facts. Ancestors sent me to finish their work. Facts. So let's get back to this. Not far from where Thomas Jefferson is, not far from where Thomas Jefferson's statue is, there's a little exhibit for Nat Turner. There's a little exhibit for Nat. They have the name Nat Turner. And then inside of the glass case, there's a small little Bible that was donated to the Smithsonian Museum by a descendant of one of the white folks who survived the Nat Turner War. So one of the descendants of the white folk who survived the Nat Turner War dedicated their Bible to the museum. So the display is not even about Nat Turner. The display is about the white folks who survived Nat Turner. And all they do is put Nat Turner's name on the glass that contains the white Bible. And at the bottom, there's a little caption describing the Nat Turner War. So this is what Nat Turner gets. Nat Turner gets his name and a 5-sentence description of his place in black history. Thomas Jefferson gets a statue. You don't see the contradiction in that, my brothers and sisters? You don't see the disrespect in that, my brothers and sisters? Okay? Now, okay, you go through the slavery floor. You go to floor number 2, fight against slavery, Civil War. A lot of the same stuff you see in any museum. And that's another thing, brothers and sisters. The 3 history floors. Remember, 3 history floors on the bottom and then 3 contemporary floors on the top. The 3 history floors on the bottom, there was nothing innovative about it. There was no new information. It's the same stuff you see every museum you go to. $540 million? $540 million. And I'm walking, I'm like, okay, if you don't know this stuff, it'd be good to read it. It's worth y'all going to get an introduction to black history. It's good for introduction. But every museum got this stuff in there. Now, is there more in the Smithsonian? Yes, they have more printed information. They have more printed information. But the way in which they bring that information to life, I would say they paid very little attention and value to how they would express our struggle, how they would express our history, how they would express our culture. For example, Thomas Jefferson gets the statue, and then he gets a lot of bricks with the names of some of the slaves that he owned. They should have put the names of all 600. They didn't want to do that because they have to protect his image. White supremacy ain't about the truth. White supremacy is about power. And in order to control power, you have to protect the image of reality. You have to control the historical narrative. But when you look at Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, who usually get a nice display in most museums, right? Okay? They didn't get that here. I thought Harriet Tubman was going to have some gigantic statue in the corner with pictures and lights. None of that. I thought my ancestor Fred was going to get some special tribute. None of that. Now, when you get to the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, he get a nice little thing. They got the hat Garvey wore. They got a little medallion. The same picture. Then next to him, you have someone who borrowed from Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He get the same little square. That's what they get. Elijah Muhammad and Marcus Garvey, they just put the nationalists together and gave them a nice little charity board. Thomas Jefferson got a statue. Marcus Garvey ain't got a statue. Something ain't right here. Thomas Jefferson got a statue. Nat Turner don't have a statue. Something ain't right here. Elijah Muhammad and Marcus Garvey, what they get? 6 feet of space. 6 feet of space. That's it. So the first floor, slavery. Second floor, the fight against slavery. Third floor is the fight against like Jim Crow. Fighting against like neo-Jim Crow. Now there's an exhibit on the Angola prison in Louisiana. And they put some facts printed. See, here's what I need y'all to understand. A museum is not just supposed to provide printed information. A museum is supposed to dramatize the reality behind the printed information. Are y'all following me, brothers and sisters? You don't need a museum to give you printed information. You can get that out of a book. You need a museum to dramatize it. You're supposed to dramatize slavery so they can feel it. You're supposed to dramatize Jim Crow so they can feel it. Not just a bunch of dates. In 1619, blacks were brought to America. In 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation. In 1865, the 13th Amendment. In 1831, the Nat Turner War. That ain't telling us nothing. You got to dramatize that. There should be a skit on that. There should be sound and images on that. Dramatize it. This is supposed to be a human experience. Dramatize it. Now, some of you Negroes, he's complaining. He's another one of those Pan-African nationalists complaining. If I'm complaining, do me a favor. I'm going to shut you down right now. I'm complaining. I want you to go to the National Museum on Jewish History, and I want you to you that to the National Museum on African American history and tell me I'm still complaining. I'm going to handle you. You jelly-back, Duncan Hines, soft batch Negroes. I'm going to handle you. Go to the Jewish Museum and compare the Jewish Museum to that Smithsonian Museum. That's what you do for me. That's what you do for me. And tell me if they handled Jewish history, who did not build America, mind you. They did not build America, mind you. But look at how their history and culture is treated in their museums compared to that Smithsonian. What they do is they diminish the experience. Remember, the museum is not a university. This is not a course. This is not an objective course. A museum is supposed to be biased towards the people whose history and culture they are narrating. You're supposed to take an interest in the people you are narrating. You're supposed to dramatize the fight against slavery. Not no dates and facts. A picture here. Nat Turner? Nat Turner? You could have put up the police sketch that they drew for Nat Turner. They have a house in Jerusalem, Druryville, that they found that is a house where some of the killings took place. Why wasn't that house put in there? Why couldn't we walk into the house where Nat Turner slayed the serpent with his own weapon? Quote, slayed the serpent with his own. You're supposed to dramatize this. You dramatize Thomas Jefferson, but you don't dramatize Nat Turner, Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But don't get me wrong. They had a couple little videos in there, eyes on the prize, the same stuff. See, what bothered me about this museum, y'all, because it's brand new. Most museums, they were built 10, 20, 30 years ago, right? This is new. This is the Smithsonian. This is the National. This is Washington. So I'm thinking we're going to see new stuff, new information, it's the same old stuff. It's the same old black history. Nothing new or innovative in this. Facts. Now check this out. I'm walking through the museum. And there's a display case. And inside the display case is a pair of Nike low-top Air Force Ones, right? Nike Air Force Ones, okay? And these Nike Air Force Ones have a picture of Barack Obama on it. So they were custom made. They're like Obama Air Force Ones. Okay, I never saw them before. I don't know if they were made just for the museum or whether they actually had some Obama Air Force Ones. I just never saw them. But they have these Nike Air Force Ones with Obama face on them, custom made, inside of a display case. Calling this culture. This is on display in an African, some Nike Air Force Ones with Obama face is a part of African culture. Are you serious? Are you serious? That's not my history and culture. We don't own Nike. And we damn sure don't own Obama. How the hell is that a part of African history and culture? But this is what they do. This is what they do. Now, it's about to get interesting. So you go through 3 floors of history, right? 3 floors of history. Now you come up. So you would think that when you come up to modern times, what you going to see? Modern struggle, right? You would expect that you're going to see something on Trayvon Martin. You would expect you would see something on Michael Brown. You would expect that you're going to see something on Sandra Bland or Eric Gardner, right? You would expect something on Walter Scott. You would expect something on Tamir Rice. There has to be an exhibit on modern police extermination of black children and black people. You would expect that in a National Museum of African American History and Culture, right? Wrong. I didn't see them nowhere. Now, maybe I overlooked it. I saw nothing on the modern police lynchings, extermination, and genocide of African people. If this museum is about our history and culture, how can you not deal with our struggle today? How can you not deal with our struggle today? But let me tell you what you do see. Mind you, you're going from history to the present. You're going from history to the present, right? You get up to the 4th floor. I don't even know what the hell the 4th floor was about. I don't know what that was. A wasted damn floor. I don't know what the hell that was. Okay? So let's go to the 5th floor. 5th floor and the 6th floor. Guess what the whole 5th floor is basically dedicated to? Not all of it, but most of it. The 5th floor is athletics. LeBron James, Venus and Serena Williams, okay, Jackie Robinson, Michael Jordan. Now check this out, brothers and sisters. I ain't got nothing against LeBron. Black man, black wife, I respect it. Serena Williams, Venus, I love what they done. Michael Jordan, as far as I'm concerned, he shouldn't have been in there because he got a white wife, white Cuban. His ass shouldn't have been. I'm sorry, ain't no black man with no white wife, nah, cut. But I understand. Greatest basketball player of all time, they had to throw him in there. But here's what I don't like. This is a museum on African American history and culture. You only have 3 floors for contemporary black culture. You only have 3, right? Because the other 3 was history, 3 now. How the hell you dedicate almost a whole floor to athletes? A whole floor to athletes. My damn history and culture ain't no damn basketball and football. You give that a whole floor? Listen to me, brothers and sisters. Listen to me. And don't you worry about that Dustin Jackson, because I'm going to block your ass soon when I'm done. So you ain't got to worry about making no more comments. Nut ass. But anyway, if this is about African history and culture, how do you find time? How do you find time to dedicate a whole floor to athletics? Do you know what that is saying? Y'all need to understand something, brothers and sisters. You're going to have people from around the world visiting this museum. You're going to have people from around people who want to know about you going to come here. They're going to come here. Arabs going to come. Chinese going to come. East Indians going to come. Mexicans going to come. White folks going to come. We want to learn about the Black American experience. Let's go to the National African American Museum. And they're going to walk out of slavery, right? 3 floors of struggle. 3 floors of struggle. And it's going to take them right to basketball and football and baseball and track and tennis. Are you serious? A whole floor of that? A whole floor of that shit? We need a whole floor of athletics? So you're telling me, check it out, family. Let me give you a little comparative analysis here. There's 1 floor on slavery. 1 floor on slavery. You could say almost 2 because of the fight, the Civil War. So you got 1 or 2 floors on slavery. It's really 1. And then you got 1 whole floor on athletics. What are you saying? 1 floor for slavery, 1 floor for basketball and football. Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're doing? You're saying that athletics is just as important as understanding the African struggle for freedom and justice. How can they be on the... Why are they giving equal weight? Athletics should have been given 1 little thing. You could put it in there. We've done a lot in sports. Yes, you can put it in. I'm not saying exclude it, but it don't get a whole damn floor. We got much more to talk about. There's so many exhibits that were not on display. Where was the exhibit on black inventors? Black inventors. We invented the gas mask, stoplight, helicopter, a cell phone, internet, self-lubricating engine, the shoe machine. Look at all the things, medicines. Look at all the things black people invented. There's no exhibit on black inventors, but you got a whole floor for basketball dunking, married to white women ass black men? Are you serious? Are you serious? This should have been a whole exhibit on the role of black women, a whole exhibit on the role of black women in the freedom struggle. Where was it at? Where was it at? This should have been a whole exhibit on historically black colleges, a whole exhibit, every HBCU. That should have been a whole floor, the struggle for black education, a whole floor. Where was that at? But you got a big screen with LeBron James dunking balls. You got a big screen with Michael Jordan dunking balls at a museum on my history? Are you crazy? Insult. That was an insult, brothers and sisters. That museum is an insult. Some of y'all won't understand, or understand it. It's going to go right over your head. Y'all going to walk in that museum and y'all going to say, what was he talking about? It's nice in here. A whole floor for athletes. Now, let me throw something at y'all. Let me throw something at y'all. Michael Jordan has a tall, beautiful, shiny statue. Venus and Serena have a tall, life-size, beautiful statue. Jackie Robinson has a beautiful statue. Okay? But can I ask you a question? How in the hell does Michael Jordan get a statue, but Frederick Douglass does not? How in the hell does Venus and Serena get a statue, but Harriet Tubman does not? How in the hell does Jackie Robinson get a statue, but Nat Turner does not? Do y'all understand me right now? Are y'all feeling me right now? You making shiny, beautiful statues for athletes, but you hardly have any. With a Fannie Lou Hamer statue. With an Ida B. Wells statue. What is it? But you got statues for athletes? Brothers and sisters, when you go to that athlete floor, it's going to blow your damn mind. They got lights, cameras, action. Okay, check this out. On that fourth floor, when you coming up from the bottom, I'm counting from the bottom, that fourth floor, they have an interactive Black Greek fraternity and sorority step show thing, okay? Step show, okay? You can stand on this square, and there's some brothers and sisters, and they'll show you how to step on the video, right? You know how you do that, the video tutorial? Stand here, and we're going to show you how to step like black people, right? Okay? Huh? I'm not against it. Don't get me wrong. But if you can do an exhibit on stepping, okay? Fraternity, sorority, stepping, why the hell you didn't make that whole floor the HBCU floor? So you're going to show them how they step and dance and shit, but you ain't going to show the history of struggle at Howard, the history of struggle at Hampton, the history of struggle at Elizabeth City, the history of struggle at Lincoln and Cheney. You ain't going to show them that. You ain't going to show them the history and struggle at Wilberforce, the history and struggle at Central, the history and struggle at North Carolina Central. You ain't going to show them that. So you're going to show them how they like to dance and step and party at the fraternities, right? We could do all this, but we ain't going to give you the history on the HBCUs. Now, don't get me wrong. They do have a little HBCU thing, but it's small compared to what they did for NFL and NBA Negroes. What has Michael Jordan done for black folks? I love Venus and Serena, but what have they done for black folks? Y'all get statues, but our heroes and sheroes don't get no statues? You making athletics more important than struggle and leadership and organization and freedom. So that's the fifth floor. Mind you, you coming up. First floor, slavery. Second floor, Civil War. Third floor, Reconstruction. Fourth floor, how to step like a black Greek. Zip coon. Okay? I'm not calling the Greek stepping zip coon. I'm saying that when white people come and they don't understand the history of the HBCU and how the Omega and the Alpha, and I know not all the fraternities were founded at HBCUs. Alpha Phi Alpha wasn't. Shout out to the Alpha Phi Alpha brothers. You guys just had your anniversary of the founding, oldest fraternity. You understand? But you got to put history to that, because white folks look at us and they think we just a whole bunch of dancing. We just a bunch of dancing, basketball playing people. You got to put that in context. You don't just let people walk on the floor, stand here, and we'll show you how they do what they do at the step show with no damn contextual history for it. You don't do that. That's making a mockery of our culture. That's a mockery of black Greek culture. That's a mockery of HBCU culture. That's a mockery of African culture. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So then you get up to the sixth floor, and guess what's on the sixth floor? So the fifth floor was all athletes, and the sixth floor is entertainment. Singing, rapping, you know, Beyonce stuff, the Jackson 5, Motown, Marvin Gaye. I love it. I love me some Marvin Gaye. I love me some Jackson 5. But you don't get a whole floor, though. We have a Motown museum in Detroit for that. The original Hit Factory. We got that. Shout out to Detroit. I'll see y'all December 30th. We got that. But you don't need a whole floor for music. Who don't know about black music? That's all we talk about. Black music. We got the Soul Train for that. BET for that. We got enough for that. Does it need to be included? Yes, but you don't get a whole floor. How does music get a whole floor, but you ain't got a whole floor for HBCUs? You ain't got a whole floor for Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism should have been its own floor, because Pan-Africanism was largely created here out of the minds of enslaved Africans. Where's that at? There should have been a whole floor on black nationalism, whole floor on black inventions. A whole floor on the mass incarceration of black men. How do you have no exhibit on the mass incarceration of black men? That little thing with Angola. It says, Angola houses more inmates than any prison in the United States. Angola houses more inmates than any prison in the United States. America has the largest incarceration rate in the world. Words. But they don't bring it to life. No drama. Y'all should have been interviewing brothers who are in jail in Angola. Y'all should have been having pictures of the family of those in Angola talking about the experience. Those brothers in Angola, they still have them on the what they call that, the chain gangs. They still chain ganging in Angola. Where was that? They still have an overseer riding on horseback in Angola. Where is that? And why didn't you tie Angola into the national mass incarceration movement against black people? Why you cut Angola out as if Angola is some sort of special case, when what's happening in Angola, although that's the worst example, is happening all over the country? It should have been a whole floor on mass incarceration. With all the special ed going on, all the low test scores for black kids, all the ADHD, all the learning disability, this should have been a whole floor on the struggle to educate black children. Not in 1619, not in 1819, not in 1917, but in 2017. Listen to me, brothers and sisters, there was no respectful coverage of the evolving struggle of Africans in America today. There was nothing on who you were before slavery, and there was nothing on what you are doing now to achieve equality in this country. They put us in a damn time capsule. And you know what's sad about this museum? Anyone who watches this museum, anyone who goes to this museum who's not black, guess what the impression is? I'm going to tell you what the impression is. the impression is going to be that they were slaves, Abraham Lincoln freedom, and right after Abraham Lincoln freedom, they start cooking chicken in fatback, and they started playing basketball and making music. That's the whole museum. That's the museum. I'm going to give it to you again. You start at the bottom. They were slaves. America brought them from Africa and civilized them. America realized what they were doing was wrong, so Abraham Lincoln freed them. They still suffered some racism after they got freed. And they fought against Jim Crow for the right to play basketball, football, marry white girls, and make music. That's what you get. The bottom is slavery. The top is athletics and entertainment. You don't end no museum on African history and culture with no damn sports and music. Are you crazy? Laura Bush, was you smoking? I think Laura Bush must have had a blunt. What was you doing? Obama, Michelle, what the hell is y'all doing? Representative John Lewis, I respect you, my brother. Representative John Lewis, this was your brainchild. You brought this to former President George W. Bush. I respect you. You're an elder. I respect you. But what the hell was you thinking? You don't let this go on like this. That's an insult. You don't end no museum with no athletics and entertainment. Brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, that $540 million, guess what? I believe 440 million went to the sports exhibit and the entertainment exhibit. Facts. Facts. Those top two floors were done much better, more interactive, more alive than all three of the bottom floors. The money went to LeBron, Michael Jordan, Beyonce, and Motown. That's where the money went. Because all you got down the bottom, don't get me wrong, it's cute if you don't know no better. If you don't know no better, you're going to like it. But if you know better, you say, whoa. When I got upstairs, I said, whoa. The children will love the fifth and sixth floor. Your children will love the sports floor because it's interactive, video and lights and statue. They're going to love the music floor. It's interactive, hip hop and rap and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Children will love that. Children won't appreciate the first three floors because they did not dramatize it. They dramatized basketball. They dramatized football. They dramatize R&B. They dramatize hip-hop. But you don't dramatize the fight to end slavery. You don't dramatize the fight against Jim Crow. You don't dramatize the fight for the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Act. You don't dramatize the Garvey movement. You don't dramatize nothing that matters, but you want to dramatize this damn stereotypical buffoonery. Facts. Facts. And you know what's so sad? Let me tell you what's really sad. What's really sad is you Negroes are in the middle of a Christmas shopping spree. You Negroes are in the middle of a multi-billion-dollar Christmas shopping spree. Right now. Ain't got nothing to do with Jesus. Nothing to do with Jesus. Stop blaming Jesus. Show me in the Bible where it says, thou shalt buy gifts from white people for Christmas. Can you show me that? Show me in the Bible where it says, thou shalt waste all your disposable income with non-Africans in the name of Jesus. Can you show me that in the Bible? I ain't saw it. Can somebody show me that? Because I didn't see that. Show me that. But the point I'm trying to make is you Negroes out here hemorrhaging your money. Financial diarrhea. Financial diarrhea. Financial diarrhea. Okay? When you can take some of that money and we should be building our own national history of Africans in America museum. Facts. National history of Africans in America museum. One whole floor for the Moors. Everybody in. One whole floor for the Hebrews. One whole floor for the black Christians. One whole floor for the Sunni Muslims. One whole floor for the Nation of Islam. One whole floor for the guys and earths. 2 floors for revolutionary Pan-African nationalism. We're not more important than nobody else, but that's how important that is. Because that's the only thing going to save us. Ain't no religion saving black folks. You can forget that. A whole floor for HBCUs, a whole floor for black invention, a whole floor for police brutality, a whole floor for miseducation, a whole floor for all of our young people who've been murdered. They had Emmett Till in there. They had the original casket that Emmett Till was buried in. You can walk past that. I'll walk past that. But that's it. But after Emmett, they should have showed Trayvon, Michael Brown, Freddie Gray. They should have showed how what happened to Emmett Till in Money, Mississippi is still happening now. There was no connection. The museum looked like we have arrived. You have LeBron James. You have arrived. You got Olympic gold medal. You have arrived. You selling multi-million. How the hell do you pervert my entire struggle and experience in this country into a desire to shoot basketballs and shake my ass to music? Are you kidding? Or they have a pair of the first Air Jordans inside of a glass case. Did y'all hear that? They have a pair of the first Air Jordans, the black and red ones. Okay, my uncle gave me his first pair when I was little. They got the Air Jordans inside of a... That ain't no black history. You don't put that shit in no history museum. We don't control Nike. What the hell is y'all doing? Brothers and sisters, Obama sneakers, statues for athletes, no statues for heroes, nothing about the modern struggle, 12 million slaves. Now what I hear, because the federal government put up half of the 540 million. The federal government put up half of the 540 million. So from what I'm understanding, a lot of athletes gave money to make the museum a reality. So maybe Laura Bush and whoever else was involved in this ridiculous project, maybe they felt that they had to donate a whole floor to athletes and entertainers because athletes and entertainers played a large role in matching the federal allocation. Okay? So the feds put up half. Your tax money paid for half of that. Your tax money paid for half of that. Okay? And then the other half was contributions. But even still, listen, if Jerry Seinfeld donates $100 million to the National Museum on Jewish History, do you think Jerry Seinfeld is expecting a whole floor on Jews in Hollywood? No, he's not. Because this ain't about him. This ain't about Jews in Hollywood. It's about all Jews, right? So there's no excuse for making a whole floor for athletes and another whole floor for entertainers, because this ain't about them. And I'm not throwing them under the bus. This is not a disrespect for them, but it is disrespectful to put them ahead of those who fought for us to even be here. There would be no LeBron James if it wasn't for Dr. King. Do you understand? There would be no Serena Williams if it wasn't for Malcolm X, Ida B. Wells, Fannie Lou Hamer. Do you understand? So how do you give the children of the struggle more respect than those who actually struggle? Facts is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Oh, I'm not done. I'm about to wrap this up because I got some evaluations to do. So after you go through this, you're going to be a little hungry, right? Because it's a lot of information here. It's going to take you a while to get through. Now, I do want to say this. Everybody who told me it would take me a couple days to get through, I don't see that for me. Not for me. I can understand if you don't know nothing about Black history and you got to read everything, it might take you a couple days. And I don't see nothing wrong with people who know their history taking a couple days to read everything in the museum. You're going to learn some things because there's a lot of printed information. It's not expressed. It's not dramatized. It's not presented effectively, but there's a lot of printed information. But for me, all I needed was 3 hours because half the stuff is the same stuff I see at every museum. So I didn't need to stop to read about who owned slaves and what colonies had more slaves and the Declaration of Independence and the Emancipation. I didn't read all that. Most of that stuff, we got that in 9th grade civics class. So for me, it wasn't much to quench my thirst. There was very little to quench my intellectual, historical, and cultural thirst in that museum. Now, some of y'all might say, well, yeah, but you know more than us on this. No, even for y'all, it might, I don't know. You got to see for yourself, but my children, Yes, my children can spend more time in there because they haven't mastered all of that yet. But a child ain't going to want to spend too much time on the first 3 floors. Your children going to want to go straight to LeBron and straight to Beyonce. They don't want the bottom because the bottom is not, they didn't spend the amount of time and effort and energy to develop and present the history. It's just a bunch of the same stuff. Dates and notes and a couple pictures. And this is Martin Luther King's shoes. And this is Fannie Lou Hamer's gloves and that type of stuff. Your kids don't want to see that. They're not going to spend a lot of time down there because it's not presented. Now compare those bottom 3 history floors to the top 3. It's like night and day. It's like, I'm telling you, they spend all the money on them damn statues for Michael Jordan and Serena in them. Okay? It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. But I'm going to end on this. After you go through the museum, the exhibits, right? You're going to be somewhat hungry. You're going to be somewhat hungry, right? They got a cafe. So I went down to the cafe. I said, okay, let me see what they got. Let me see what they selling. African American Museum. I said, okay, what they're probably going to do, if I was in charge, I am going to have cuisine from the different African ethnic nations, not tribes. Tribes is a racist word. The different African ethnic nations and cultures. Millions came from Ghana. Let me put some Ghanaian food out. Show this is where they come from. Many came from Nigeria. Let me put some Igbo dishes out. A lot of enslaved Africans came from Igbo land. Let's put some Yoruba out. They came from Sierra Leone. Let's put some different dishes out to show what African Americans were eating in Africa before we stole them. So I'm thinking it's going to be a rich display of different cuisines from Africa. Do you think so? Do you want to know what I saw? I was there yesterday, memory fresh. Do you want to know what I saw? Macaroni and cheese, fried chicken, pork and beans. What else they have? Sweet potato pie, candied yams. Don't get me wrong. I love to eat these little things, but you don't put slave diet. You don't put stereotypical dishes from African American slavery in a museum on history and culture. It's supposed to be about history and culture. We didn't eat chitlins because we wanted to eat chitlins. We ate chitlins because all they let us eat was chitlins. We didn't do grits and shrimp because that was necessarily what we liked. It was because it was the cheapest thing. That's all we could get. Many of us were enslaved in Maryland, in Virginia, with a big fishing industry. So it was easy access to the shrimp. The master threw us the shrimp. That diet ain't culture. That's circumstance. We ate that because we had to eat that. You don't sell that shit in no museum for black history and culture. So let me get this right. You got Chinese, Arabs, Asians, Southern Europeans, Mexicans, Latinos. And when I say Latino, I'm not talking about my Afro-Latinos, y'all with us. But you got people from all around the world. We're going to take our family to see the new African American Museum. Maybe we can learn about these people for the first time. And after they get bamboozled with sports and entertainment, they're going to go get something to eat. Look at this shit. A whole floor of basketball, a whole floor of music. And then when we go get something to eat, we got to eat chicken, greens, and macaroni and cheese. Are you serious right now? Fried chicken in a museum? Greens? Mac and... If you don't get the gist of what I'm saying right now, if you don't get the gist of what I'm saying right now, then I feel sorry for you. In my opinion, that museum was disrespectful. And I believe that there was a hidden agenda in that museum. And the hidden agenda in that museum basically says this: These people don't care about nothing but sports, music, and soul food. Sports, music, soul food, and black Greek step shows. Sports, music, soul food, black Greek step shows. Letting them out of slavery was a mistake. Letting them out of slavery was a mistake. So when you see police kill black folks, even when they're unarmed, even when they're defenseless, even when they're innocent, you should not worry about it. Because once you come out that museum, you're going to leave with the impression that black people ain't good for shit except sports, music, soul food, and black Greek step shows. That's a damn shame. That's a damn shame. Do I want you to go? I want you to see it. You need to see that. Now, when I called them, they said, well, ain't no tickets until March. We booked up. Black folks can't wait to get there, booked up. And that ain't just black folks. That's whites, Chinese, people from all over the world coming to D.C. to learn about you. And they're going to get sports, music, black Greek step shows, and fried chicken for $540 million. $540 million. Embarrassing. If we didn't have better things to do, I would say we need to have a massive boycott outside that damn museum. But we got some more pressing problems. I would say every black person need to go there. Don't even let nobody go in there. This does not represent us. This is a disgrace and it is disrespectful. We do not condone it and we don't want nobody walking in here. If we didn't have better things to do, we got other more important things to do right now. But that doesn't mean if they don't get that shit together, we may have to do just that. We may have to boycott the National African American Museum for significant, diabolical, strategic misrepresentation of true African history and culture. I am more than rap. I am more than slam dunks. I am more than chicken wings and collard greens and ham and pork and beans. So brothers and sisters, I'm about to wrap this up. Now some of y'all probably saying, Doc, I was about to take my family. Go ahead and take your family. If you can afford it, I live in Philly, so DC ain't but 2 hours. But if you tell me that you're going to take your tax return, you're going to take your income tax return and spend the whole thing to fly your family from California and pay for them expensive ass Washington, DC hotels so your family can go to the National African American Museum, I'm not going to say don't do it. But I don't think I could spend my last to take my family to see that. The Great Blacks and Wax Museum in Baltimore, much better. Much better. The National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, much better. The Apartheid Museum in South Africa will put that museum to shame. The Apartheid Museum in South Africa will put that museum to shame. I can say that. And there's problems with the Apartheid Museum in Johannesburg. But the Apartheid Museum in Johannesburg is 50 times better than that Smithsonian African American Museum. They don't have a whole floor dedicated to soccer in South Africa. They don't have a whole floor dedicated to sports and entertainment. That shit is about politics and struggle in history. And ours should have been about politics and struggle in history. You should go, but don't spend your last. You tell me, Doc, it's going to cost me $5,000, but I really want my kids to see this. You need to go to the Black African Holocaust Museum in Philadelphia. You need to go to the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. You need to go to Slave Haven in Memphis. You need to go to the Oyotunji African Village. That's where you need to go, where you get some real information on black folks. But that there, for that to be the national, it's not even the best. It didn't cost $540 million for the Great Blacks and Wax. It didn't cost $540 million for the National Civil Rights Museum. It didn't cost $540 million for the Charleston Slave Tour. I know brothers and sisters that'll give you a tour for $20 that'll blow that whole museum to shreds. $540 million. Talking about you ain't got to pay to get in. I guess not. You just spent a $500 million. I should never have to pay. I guess not. So brothers and sisters, let me just say I'm looking forward to being in Elizabeth, New Jersey this Saturday. Elizabeth, New Jersey, December the 10th. Mickey Walker Community Center. Sunday, Jamaica, Queens, New York City, Jamaica, at the Jamaica Performing Arts Center on Sunday, December the 11th. Kwanzaa, Day 1, Baltimore, Maryland. Kwanzaa, Day 1, Baltimore, Maryland. Kwanzaa, Day 1, Monday, December the 26th. I will be at the Downtown Cultural Arts Center, Baltimore, Maryland, 401 North Howard Street. The Eventbrite will be up soon. Kwanzaa, Day 3, Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville, Florida, at the Regency Square Mall, Jacksonville, Florida, on Wednesday, December the 28th. And then we're going to go to Detroit, Motown, Friday, December the 30th. We will be at the Greater Mount Moriah Baptist Church, Friday, December the 30th. Greater Mount Moriah Baptist Church from 6 until 9. It's 586 Owen Street for my family in Detroit. Atlanta, Georgia, first day of Kwanzaa, Sunday, January the 1st. Los Angeles, California, Los Angeles, California, Los Angeles, California, at the Ward AME Church on Saturday, January the 7th. Durham, North Carolina, Durham, North Carolina, Durham, North Carolina. I will be at the Haiti Cultural Center on, Tuesday, January the 17th. So that's how we rolling out. Prince of Pan-Africanism. Keep them donations coming to the school. If you know some schools, let me know. We on the school hunt. We're going to get that FDMG school this year. Black College and Consciousness Tour coming up. Repatriation Task Force updates is coming up. National Independent Black Parent Association Conference. Please join me. Please join me. Please join me in San Diego, California, so I can train you, so you can go back to your city and start a chapter or become a part of a chapter of the National Independent Black Parent Association, organized to help empower our parents to fight against racism and apartheid in the public schools. Special Ed Committee, Discipline Committee, Finance Committee, Policy Committee, Support Committee, Homeschool Committee, Parent Advocacy. Join the NIBPA. Destiny has returned. Join the NIBPA. Destiny has returned. Black College and Consciousness Tour. Second annual Unapologetically African Black College and Consciousness Tour. Atlanta, Georgia, June 28th to July 12th. Facts. Registration coming soon. Fourth annual Dr. Umar Unapologetically African Tour. Fourth annual Dr. Umar 2-week tour to Africa. Registration coming soon. East Africa. Facts. I don't just talk, I build. Facts. Yes, I charge $20 to come to the lecture because you ain't the one who spent $20,000 on the college tour. Excuse me, $30,000 on the college tour out their own pocket last year. I did that. Facts. Facts. Okay? You ain't the one flying me around to go look at all these different schools. You ain't the one paying for lawyer fees and inspection fees. I'm doing that. That's why it's $20. Facts. You got people in the conscious community charge way more money than me. They don't have my credentials, my commitment, or my expertise. Facts. $20 ain't shit. Facts. You spend more than that on your nails, your hair, your white girlfriend, your cars. Facts. Don't come at me with that. Don't come at me with that. So brothers and sisters, San Diego, California, Friday and Saturday, January 27th and 28th. I hope to see you there. So coming to Eventbrite this week, I got to put Los Angeles on Eventbrite. I got to put Durham on Eventbrite. I got to put San Diego on Eventbrite. I got to put Baltimore on Eventbrite. Okay. I will be on the radio tonight, New York City radio, 8 o'clock, to prepare for the double power lecture on Saturday and Sunday. So brothers and sisters, don't forget to donate. GoFundMe.com/Dr. Umar. GoFundMe.com/Dr. Umar. But like I said, Ifa Tunde, I did not choose that. Chief Olaitan gave me that. My first ever divination at Oyo Tunji, I was given the name Ifa Tunde Ogun Tade is the last name. Ifa Tunde Ogun Tade. And Ogun Tade means Ogun wears the crown. I'm a son of Ifa and a son of Ogun. Facts. Facts. The god of war, deity of conflict, deity of energy, deity of courage, deity of construction, deity of creation. Ogun. Facts. So I'm going to end on that. One love.